My name is Moses Powell. I've been studying jiu-jitsu for the last 20 years. I'm the master Furqan Shabazz. And at this particular time, I'm a senior master in the art of jiu-jitsu Te and jiu-jitsu Ryu.
.radio.net presents to you some of the most deadly jiu-jitsu masters in the world. Trained in the vicious urban inner-city street combat system of sanuces Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, this art was created by the legendary Dr. Moses Powell, the father of American contemporary jiu-jitsu and the greatest martial artist of the 20th century. This network brings together 4 radio shows 4 nights a week, starting with Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Each one teach one, with the Pia Master himself, Grandmaster Urban Muhammad, and his protege, Professor Terrence Hale. Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Modern Combat Masters, hosted by the inheritor of GM Billy Davis Jiu-Jitsu, guru of his own Filipino system, and sanuces master, Grandmaster Daryl Sargent, and his co-host, Sifu Reseda de Jesus. Thursday nights at 9 p.m. is Professor Tom Curry's radio talk show, a Kenpo master and professor of sanuces Ryu, 20 years law enforcement, senior tactical training instructor for intelligence retired, and author of the official sanuces Ryu Jiu-Jitsu testing and training curriculum. And Friday nights at 8 p.m. is Making the Connection, hosted by the president of DocRadio.net, Grandmaster in the art of sanuces Ryu and Soke of Kuroshi Kaikan martial arts system, and president of the Family of Sanuces organization, Soki Haisan Khalik, and his co-host, Shihan Farouk Gibbs. All of these shows can be linked to online by typing in docradio.net or listening live at the scheduled time by dialing 646-716-6825. DocRadio.net is also proud to present DocMagazine.net, the world's largest martial art magazine dedicated to Dr. Moses Powell, sanuces Ryu Eye-to-Eye Jiu-Jitsu, urban tactical street self-defense, and streetology. Please join our Facebook group by typing in docradio.net and follow us on Twitter by typing docradio.net. Thank you for your support, and in the words of Doc, eye to eye, heart to heart, to the wall and back, os.
Eye to eye, Grandmaster.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Eye to Eye Radio on the Net series, sponsored by Senjokai.com or SenjoMartialArts.com, your premier dojo for sanuces Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, located here in Atlanta, Georgia. Tonight we have a very special guest, a gentleman who is very well known in all the corners of sanuces Ryu, as well as Jiu-Jitsu and Kumite, and probably martial arts in general, Grandmaster Anthony Muhammad. How you doing, Grandmaster?
I'm doing great, and thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for accepting the invitation. All right, we have I'll be interviewing Grandmaster along with my co-host and partner in crime, if we can call him that, Mr. Furqan Shabazz. How you doing, Mr. Shabazz?
Oh, Sensei, how you doing?
Very good. All right, well, we got some questions, and let's get this show started because you are a very, very busy man, Grandmaster, and it is a pleasure to interview you. And I wish you could smile on my face, as well as the nervousness interviewing you, sir.
Yes,
but we're going to go ahead and get this thing started, and we'll let Mr. Shabazz go ahead and start.
I want to just first take time to thank you, Grandmaster Muhammad, for letting us do this interview. I mean, you're definitely a major cornerstone in the present. And, just the fact that you're just taking this time to talk to us is, I just can't thank you enough for this interview. I just want to go right into the first question. In some ways, you could be viewed as the golden child in the sense that you came from sanuces, Jiu-Jitsu, and Kumite Ryu. Can you please tell the audience what is the fundamental difference in these 3 systems' approach to self-defense?
Well, the fundamental difference, I would really say more that when we look at sanuces Ryu, Kumite Rujujitsu, Vijitsu Te, when we look at those, these styles of martial arts, and you look at those masters, the art and what is presented is an application or a view for the most part. It's how the master views his training and what he was taught, and then it's his presentation. So, the difference is how they pretty much came up in the art. So now let me just ask, are you asking the question with, focusing on the specific style and difference in the style, like a kick or punch, or are you asking, because the style is the person. Sanukis Ru was Dr. Moses Powell, and I have, he has said to me, and he said to many others, he said, I am Sanukis,
yes,
where many of us would say that we are, Sanukis. Well, we're not Sanukis, in the sense that the art itself is his compilation of what he studied and all of the things that came into his life. The presentation of it came out to be Sanukis, and even the word Sanukis came out of him, where it is not a word that comes out of the Japanese terminology so much, but it is a word that came out of him. And he said that God gave him that word, and it was Sanukis, and it meant simplicity and survival. So, I just say that, when I look at the three men, I look at them as individuals and how they live their life, and the beautiful man that Grand Professor V was, and to me is, in what he has taught us. Just very, very beautiful in how he presented it. But all of them have a similarity. It's just that how their life was now came out through their art, if that makes if you understand.
Grandmaster, but for me, when I say difference, what I mean is like, okay, so like when I look at V-Jitsu, I think of Professor V, and I say, okay, he has an art, okay, and that's art A. But then when I think of Sanukis, I think of Dr. Moses Powell, and I think of this brother that transcended his teacher. So now he has an art. So when I think of Sanukis, I say, okay, well then there has to be something distinct. And let's just say if I'm shopping, I'm going to the store and I'm shopping, but here I'm in the market to learn self-defense. So I'm looking at what's out there in the market, and I say, okay, there's V-Jitsu, I want to learn that. But then there's Sanukis, okay, so Doc transcended what his teacher gave him, so obviously there's something in that that's unique to that. Okay, boom, I want to have that in my shopping list as well. But then Dr. Powell had this top great student named Soke Littlejohn, who then had his inspiration, Kumite Ru. So obviously there's something in that. So I say, well, damn, I want to get that. So I want to put that in my pocket too. I want to have Kumite Ru. I want to have Sanukis Ru. I want to have V-Jitsu. So now when I got all these things in my shopping bag, my thing is when I go home to my wife and I'm getting ready to invest my money, she's going to say to me, well, if you're going to spend this money, if you're going to invest the next 25 years, what is the difference? Because if there's no difference, why not just pick one and stick to it? So I just wanted to know, what is the distinct characteristics of these three different systems?
Well, again, when you look at the life of Grandmaster V, you find a man who came from the Philippines, who in the Philippines is a stick fighting, a knife fighting style of practitioner. And when he came in, he began to involve himself and study other styles of martial arts in California, and from California all the way up into New York. He studied various things. So in his movement, you'll find a lot of the Filipino style movement and short chopping style movement in what he has done there. So now the difference with Dr. Moses Powell is you find a man who came from the street. You find a man who was involved and was close to gang activity and things of that nature that came up at a time where it was very, very rough and tough in the street. And he said, and many of us have heard him say, you couldn't walk around at that time if you didn't know something. So this is that kind of life. So you're talking about a man who in his style or in his study of martial arts was studying it from a perspective of reality right now in the street, get down, and if I have to deal, it's going to be very, very real. So you have that. I mean, and again, with the style itself, style is a matter of your opinion and how you like a particular thing and what you want out of it. But what is being taught and how it's being taught. You got Soke Little John Davis, who, if you have any background on Soke, you'll know that Soke, he also came from a very tough background. Many may not know that Soke was someone who did not have a family until he was, given a family and was opened up, and he studied under a teacher by the name of Buster, and then he introduced him to Dr. Moses Powell, and his introduction to him led him to say that this was the man that I was going to study under, and that's in fact what he did. So it's just how they lived their life, and their life demonstrated, their activity, and it demonstrated what kind of style, they presented. So the difference is where he came from where the others came from, and how they presented. All of it is real. All of it worked. And it's a matter of opinion now. What you should go into.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, Grandmaster Anthony. Yeah. Just to get into the just so the people who don't know who you are, which I think should be everybody, but if they don't know who you are, just give the people a brief story about your time coming up with both Mr. V, Professor V, Dr. Moses Powell, and also Soke Little John Davis, and about your personal story. If you can, a few minutes, just telling people where you were born, what years you started training, because I know from Doc that you started as a very, very young man as one of his students. So you have a point of view that many haven't seen. To have studied with I don't want to say the Mecca, but basically the heart of where all three of these systems pretty much originated from, especially with the Sanuces Rue and the Kumite Rue. And just brief stories about your time with Mr. V. How was he as a man for people who never met him, including myself and Shabazz. I have met Soke Little John, and of course I have met Dr. Moses Powell. So for those people who don't know Professor V, or for those few people who don't know Soke Little John, and for those people who only met, let's say like my colleague here, Shabazz, who only met Doctor once or twice in their lifetime, is there something you can share, maybe a personal story or something you can tell us about Doc, Mr. V, or Soke Little John, or even from you, just something that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Absolutely. I mean, I have a ton of stories to share on all of them, but I'll just say this, that just so that we can understand, I mean, they weren't separate for me. I mean, the introduction to everybody was through Doc. Doc, was, my teacher, my father, and I came up in the martial arts, 1968, is for the most part when I really began. I studied the martial arts. I really started with Doc really in 69. Studying under the system of sanuces, under his some of his students through Muhammad University of Islam. I came up in the Nation of Islam, and as a child, a junior in it, that was a part of what we had to do. Our sport and play was training. It was boxing, it was martial arts, and Doc was one of the premium teachers in the Nation of Islam, and he presented his art to the school, and I had the pleasure and the privilege of studying under his students. One was a brown belt at the time by the name of Brother Leon, and Leon was one of the first ones to teach me and us in the school, and then we had Brother Randy, who beautiful young martial artist that was under Doc, and it was just wonderful because he was not one of the older brothers. He was older than us, but he was a young master in the art, and he was coming up, and he was one of those that was teaching us. Cecil was one of those that was teaching us. Pedrito, a number of the masters we had an opportunity to study under, and of course Doc himself. So it was, all of it was through him, and I just want to say that Doc Grand Professor V started teaching, or not started, but he was teaching black belts, and I was a brown belt at the time, and was allowed to train with them at the time that the black belts were training, and he would let and he would be teaching us there, and then from there, you establish your own relationship, and you continue and you do things on your own and whatnot, Soki Lujan was just an icon in the dojo. I mean, he was someone that, really back in those days, I mean, it wasn't a lot of, just lovey-dovey kind of stuff. You got down, and it was just, that was the relationship was on the mat. And if you didn't have anything to say on the mat, you really didn't have a whole lot to say outside of, if you had a real serious adult relationship. Again, I'm a youth at the time. At this time, 9, 10 years old, and building it up from that point. So I was with them through him. So from him opening up the door to all of them, that is how I began my study with them, and then it became personal, and I started training with each of them more. And Grand Professor V, he was such a beautiful, I mean, anyone know him, if anyone know him and have been around him, they'll talk about how he talked about martial arts is like music. And he says, says you can have, everyone can, the notes are still the same, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. He says, but when this person sings it, he can use the same notes, but it comes out in a different melody. And he said that's how martial arts is. And he said my students are like this. He says I'm like a father that all of the children love, but they have problems with each other. So that's some of what and I know we are dealing with time, so I don't want to extend it too long, and maybe we could at some other time go into it deeper, because each one of them deserve their own time to have a conversation about them individually, because it's really, it takes from each of them to talk about all of them in the same breath. Doc, was someone that, I started studying with him, and I trained to the point that when Doc would come to the dojo, I'm standing at the door, and I'm a youth that I don't know how many others, and I don't know anyone else, in fact, that had a key to the dojo that was a child. And I was able to, I was given the key to the dojo because he knew that I loved it, and he was always there. So he was the one who gave me my black belt. Many of the other ranks I didn't necessarily get from him, but my black belt I got from Doc, and we can again go through the stories of how these things happened, but I was very privileged to know him not just as someone who was just my teacher, because he didn't treat me like he was just my teacher. He treated me like he was my father, and I know that many others may that as well, but I'll say this, that he is one who came up at a time when I was a child, and I grew up to become a man under him.
Yes, sir. That's good hearing. That I love the way you broke that down, Grandmaster.
Grandmaster, my next question is this: What are the three distinct characteristics of these same three Soke's teaching styles?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that for me?
Yeah. My question is, what are the three distinct characteristics of these three Soke's teaching styles? In other words, like what was the teaching style of Professor V, Doc, and Soke Littlejohn in terms of how they delivered jiu-jitsu, in terms of how they taught?
Well, there's not difference, but the similarities is it you're asking me?
Well, yeah, like I'm imagining, since they both are three different teachers, I'm assuming they had their own unique way of teaching it, and so what was the characteristic of each one of their teaching styles?
Well, Mr. V, Grand Professor V, he was someone that was very meticulous in really teaching. I mean, you'll find him writing on the board. You'll find him writing things down for you to understand, like a teacher would do in school. But he always had to touch you, and you always felt he had to, make you feel it. I mean, I remember doing an interview with him, and I'm interviewing him just to ask him questions, but he would not just allow for the questions to be answered alone, but he had to do something to touch me to make me to understand what he meant also in my questioning him. And I think that's really kind of similarity in all of them. They all wanted to touch you and make you feel to understand exactly what was meant. But he was that type of teacher where he was more of a board, and he could write things down and be very, very meticulous in that way. And Doc was very different, where he taught through the Spirit more and allowed you as an individual to receive it based on whatever level you were on, Wow. So he wasn't necessarily writing a lot of things down. I mean, we didn't have a lot of paperwork and whatnot that was given to us. It was, you hear, if you're here, then you're going to get based on what you are here to receive. And if you write it down, then you write it down and you can move on with it. But it was about being in his presence to receive whatever he was giving, because he felt and he presented himself like this was something from God given to him. So if you're not here to receive it, then you don't even deserve it. So, that's the kind of man Doc was. And I'll say Soke was a blend of the two of them, because Soke is one who really desires and presents himself in a way to have this material down, knowing the 1 through 10 and this and the jiu-jitsu forms, and he desires to lay out a system that can be followed behind himself, but he also desires desires to make sure that someone is, again, coming to the well, so that they can receive it in the best way, so that they won't just believe that they know. He will know that they know, and the person themselves as well. So I see Soke as a blend between the two.
Yes, sir. Grandmaster Anthony, on the same question, how did from your firsthand witnessing and being a student of all three gentlemen and spending so much time with all three, especially Doc and Soke Littlejohn, how was the relationship between that you witnessed? I'm asking for an eyewitness account here. The relationship between Doc and Grand Professor V, and Doc and Soke Littlejohn, and Littlejohn and Grand Professor V. How was the relationship as far as respect camaraderie, love? How is that relationship in the dojo and outside the dojo from the years you spent with the brothers?
Well, I've never in my life seen Grandmaster V angry. I've never seen it. I've never seen him upset. You know, me personally, I've not seen him. I've always seen him just wanting to give something, and he's just such a peaceful person. At least in my presence. Someone else may have had a different experience, but he never showed me any of that. Even when people had issues or problems, he never showed that he had ever an issue. Doc was different in the sense that he was a loving person, but if you got on his wrong side, you knew that you were on his wrong side.
Yes, sir.
And there were times when all of us, at some point, was on that side, But the thing about it is, he never carried it in a way that you could not get back or clear whatever the issue or problems were up with him. So there was always a love between Grandmaster V and Doc. Grandmaster V always talked about him. Anytime anything was mentioned about martial arts and people that he has trained, he would always mention Master Moses Powell or Musa, that type of thing.
Yes,
so that was always there. Also, Doc, anytime anyone is asking Doc about his top students, Doc will mention Soke Little John Davis. Always will mention him. What were there issues that were there? Well, we do consider ourselves to be human, and in that there is going to be some of that type of thing. So I'm not going to make it appear as though that there was none of that. But again, he loved Soke. I know that. I've seen that. Others have issues may have an issue with Soke and want to make it appear as though Doc did not care for him. But why would it be that Doc would have him in his presence? So there was a love from my vantage point between Doc and Soke always loved Doc. That wasn't even a question. From all of the conversations and what he has worked with me and taught me, I've always heard and heard nothing other than his love for Doc. So that's how it is for me.
Well, so you're listening live to Grandmaster Anthony Muhammad on the Senjokai Radio Network here, Eye to Eye, on the Met series. If you're missing this, I'm sorry, you're missing a beautiful, beautiful interview. Grandmaster, I just want to take this time to say thank you once again for giving us a chance to do this interview. I think there's a lot of people out there that definitely need to hear what you speak from your own mouth instead of other people speaking for you, if you know what I mean.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Shabazz. I'll let you continue the interview.
Grandmaster, here's my next question for you. All right. History reveals that you was one of the main people Doc wanted to leave the system of Sanuces Route 2 as his heir. Can you explain what happened during that time?
Well, I'll say it like this, with respect to heirs and whatnot. I didn't understand what Doc meant when he said, I am Sanuces. When he first said it, I didn't understand. I really didn't understand. I was like, in my mind, of course, I wouldn't say it to him, but in my mind, I'm saying, Doc, you're Sanuces, then what happens with what we're studying? How is it not all of us, Sanuces? Well, what I came to understand is that sanuces was him because it was it's what came out of his heart and his mind and his spirit that we now take on to reflect. So as one who Doc put his time into, there is no way that I could not reflect my teacher or the love of my teacher to my students and to all of those who I ever present myself to. You know, I am a student of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and looking at him and how he is and the type of man that he is and how he studied under the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and how he reflected that man is a reflection of how I work and reflect my teacher and my father, Dr. Moses Powell. So, you know, so I guess that's where I am. You know, as far as that's concerned, I don't know. Did I answer?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, this is my first time conversing with you, brother. But you're a deep brother. I mean, you know, man, you may be a minister one day. I may be coming to your mosque, inshallah. But to bring in more is like this. What I'm saying is that Dr. Moses Powell wanted you to take over the system of sanuces, at least what I've been told by many people, and this was presented to you for you to basically run the system. And to get more to the point, you basically, from what I was told, was that you basically didn't accept that. So can you elaborate on that?
No, that's totally untrue. Okay. I never denied anything that Doc asked me to do. Never. As far as, you know, that's something that's related to even when Doc had asked me. No, I'm sorry. Doc he doesn't really ask you anything. Doc instructed me, told me. He said one day in When Worlds Collide, he said, listen, he said, Anthony, you got something there, and I want you to name it. I said, Doc, I don't name it. What do you mean? I'm doing sanuces. He said, man, no. I said, I want you to name it. I said, you know, and I went again, Doc, I didn't want you to do it. And if anyone knows Doc, you know that he got a little explicit and very direct and, you know, told me what I had to do. I said, okay, fine. I had to leave now and try to think about what is it that I needed to do here, because I didn't want to name anything different, because, I mean, I know that I'm only studying, I can only introduce what I have studied. So I said, okay, fine, and where VSK came in is that, you know, he introduced me to these men, in a sense, through his training. So I just said VSK as an acronym of what it is that we all have gotten. Really, most that have, not most, I won't say that because everybody didn't get, you know, touched by, Grandmaster V. Everybody didn't get touched by Soke Louis John Davis. You know, some got touched by either of them or may have come around during seminars or that type of thing, but they didn't get trained and taught as a student in a class by them in that way. So, you know, as far as an heir to it, my desire is to raise the name of Dr. Moses Powell. So when I give events, you know, I give seminars every year for the last 16 years where we are in convention centers now, you know, and we are presenting ourselves. We have 300, persons on the mat, being taught. We are giving tournaments now. I mean, so I have presented this art in front of thousands of people at a time at demonstrations. So, and I'm doing it in the name of God. And my objective is to make sure that sanuces is made known. I don't know what everybody else is talking about. they say what they want to say, but I know that that man loved me and I love him, and I am going to raise the name of Sanuces, raise the name of Dr. Moses Powell, and there's no one that is in listening earshot of this that will come before me to say anything other than what I'm doing, because I have the ability to prove it through my actions and not just my words.
Yes, sir.
Grandmaster, you know, in the teachings, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he always talked about, even the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, a lot of times they'll teach on the dry bones and how the wind's coming out of those dry bones. That's a classic, scripture that's always taught from the teachings. And, from a Muslim to Muslim, one of the things that just comes from the winds, and I just come, we Muslim here, and my name is Furqan. I got to talk a straight talk here, is that in those winds, they say that when it comes to VHK, Dr. Moses Powell wanted you to take the S out. Is that true?
No, sir.
And one second, I'm sorry, Grandmaster. Let me interject here, because and that is, and this is actually, I'm glad, because we can talk eye to eye and we can talk heart to heart and be respectful and have a dialogue. And this is something that is being said and is being spoken. And what Furqan said earlier, Mr. Shabazz said earlier, was also true, because I've heard numerous times that Dr. Moses Powell initially wanted to leave this system of sanuces to you, and that you rejected the system. I have never heard this from you, but I'm glad you answered the question. But the second point the brother brought up is absolutely true. That I've heard that many times being repeated by many, even senior, we come a very, very senior as well as junior students of Dr. Moses Powell, that Doc specifically said that he did not want the S in sanuces, and was specifically told it to you. Now I have no knowledge whether pro or con, but I would love to address that issue if you could.
Absolutely. I mean, to just address it, it's untrue, and I would offer myself to anyone that has heard that or was in the presence of Doc where he told me anything like that. I would like for them to say that to my face, because it is an absolute lie. But you see, this is the thing, the beauty of this is that I must be worth talking about. Because someone who's doing nothing would not be worthy of having anything said. So it's understood that, there are those who do not like the fact that I represent who I represent. It'd be one thing if I didn't represent him.
Yes,
but whenever you hear me and any of my students, none of them can say that I do not represent Dr. Moses Powell, that I do not represent sanuces and whatnot, that I have said anything ill about my teacher, whom I love, ever. But I would love to have those persons to be in a position to say that to me, so that I can hear, and maybe they can bring my memory back to when such a thing happened. But to my memory, Doc never said anything like that to me.
See, now that's eye to eye, and that's heart to heart.
Yes, sir. But they say that you would be, that you would be ill-spoken of, you would be maligned and all of that. That just represents letting me know that I'm on the right side doing the right thing, and I'm going to keep on working hard to make sure that he is never forgotten. And I'm going to not only make sure that he's never forgotten, it is my objective to have more people know about him by the grace of Allah, God, through me,
yes, sir,
than anyone else on the planet.
Yes, sir.
That's my drive.
Good.
We're talking to Grandmaster.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Shabazz.
Grandmaster, next question.
Grandmaster, you there?
I'm here. I can't hear Brother Shabazz.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Shabazz. We're losing you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay. As a Grandmaster Sanuces rule, what do you feel is the main difference between Sanuces eye to eye and self-defense complete?
Self-defense complete. What is
the
that?
difference between self-defense eye to eye and self-defense complete? Yes.
I don't know. I don't know what self-defense complete. I'm not a practitioner of self-defense complete, so I can't really speak on it. I don't know what that really entails. So I have to acquiesce to that.
All right, we'll bring it. Let me round the question around. In Sanuces, since your time in '69 throughout the '70s and the '80s to now, do you see a major difference in what was? And we're speaking particularly about Sanuces here. Do you see a major difference or even minor differences in the way Sanuces was being taught and practiced? Let's say from the New Yorkers to where Sanuces has gone to California. It's going down, of course, Fort Lauderdale, Miami. It's in Atlanta. It's in Chicago. Of course, it's been all over. Have you seen major differences in what in some of the core and some of the strengths of Sanuces? And if you have, what do you attribute those major differences to in Sanuces rule? As far as we know, people are bringing things in Sanuces, and we know people are taking things out of Sanuces. If you can speak to that, just from the time you've been in Sanuces.
Right. Okay. Well, when we say self-defense complete, meaning what is stated that Doc named it or something. Before Sanuces, from what I understood from some of the other seniors, before Doc called it Sanuces, it was called self-defense complete. Self-defense complete. That was before my time. It wasn't. Exactly. Yeah, that was before I came on the scene with it being self-defense complete in that sense, as a title or name. You can hear that from like Grandmaster Lamunda, who was there back in that day, and some others. But this is what I would say, to it. See, a man's life. When you look at a man's life, and you travel through the years, when you were a young man, you did things in a different kind of way, and as you grew older, your ability to do some of those things, like any high flying movements. Well, maybe we're not doing that now because our body is not able to do that. But then we begin to firm our step a little bit more, and now it is taught in a different way. So when you look at the different persons who have come in these various years, in the latter years when Doc was not moving like he used to move in his younger days, did not get an opportunity to understand the art coming up. So I was with Doc in his 20s, in his late 20s. Yeah. So, I was able to see him all the way through up until he left our presence. So, I had an understanding of where he came from at the point that I came in to the point that he left. So there were some that were here before me that did not continue. And then there were those that came in after, in the latter days, that did not have the earlier time. So I would say that you have to look at the full life, and if you did not see when he was flying around, when he was doing the incredible feats that he was doing in his early years, if you didn't get a chance to see that and understand his ability at that time, then you were shortchanged in one sense, that you can't look at yourself as having a complete anything because you don't know the full man. And you didn't travel rode with him like that. So there are those who did. Soke did. You have others who traveled and was there at different times in his life, and you know, again, I got great respect for those, like Randy, Brother Randy and whatnot. You know, these masters, man, I have great respect for them because they saw the early, the mid, and they saw the late. And, you know, when we get to the point where those who come in this later day, you want to ignore the history from the seniors, when if you look at African culture, what should happen is, and I'm not just talking about just from African culture, but any culture, you look at those who have walked the walk along the way as the ones you listen to about the history of the old ones. But they don't do that because they don't desire to submit to those who were there in the early days.
Yes, sir.
Grandmaster, just to add to that, let me ask you: when Doc came from Atlanta and Florida, let's say like around when he came back to New York around '91, around that '89, around that time, how was his? I brought
him to New York.
Okay, when you brought him to New York, when you brought him to New York during that time, how was his movements different from before? From let's say back in the '70s, like what? How was he? How was Sanuces different at that point?
Well, it was transforming. You know, it was transforming because of how, you know, what he could do and what he could not do. You see, so when you got a master who was of the caliber of Dr. Moses Powell, just because he didn't fly like he used to fly did not mean that he was not capable of doing the things, doing to you or having the same result, you know, happen to you at where he was. So it began to change from, you know, the use of legs and his movement to a different type of a different level of what he was focused on and how he had to do what he had to do, you know. But again, he was still operating, you know, from even in that late 80s into the 90s. Doc was still doing some things. It wasn't that he was gone or anything, but he had issues with his knee. He had issues with his body at that time. And because of that, he modified, or I don't even want to say modified. I'd like to just say that he formulated a different way of presenting sanuces, and that's what it became. And I asked him, I said, Doc, you know, what's the deal with the peer forms? And you know, he was teaching us the short forms and whatnot. And he said, well, this is who I am today. And if this is who I am, this is what I want you to study. Yes, sir. Okay. So, you know, I mean, again, that's just who he was becoming. But it was the same thing with Grandmaster V. It transformed. It was Vijitsu Te. It went from Vijitsu Te into Vihanis Jitsu. So the style, it changes because of the time and the individual, the level of understanding and what is necessary. So, but you can't look at it at that one time. You got to understand where it was at a particular time and what the change was and why, so that you could really grasp what today is all about, because you were able to understand what yesterday was. And everyone is not getting that.
Grandmaster, it leads me to the next question. and we kind of touched on this, in around question 2 or 3, but it's okay. But in a recent interview with Grandmaster Noel Arrington, he stated that Professor V gave Sanuces Ru his blessing. Did Dr. Moses Powell ever give the same blessing to Kamite Ru and VSK?
Well, I can't speak to when we say blessings. I mean, I look at giving blessings how you are still called on to be the one who he demonstrates on. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yes, sir.
When we talk about giving his blessings, I don't know when that happened with Soke. I don't know. I wasn't there to hear that specifically as far as that was, that time was concerned. So I'm not going to speak to that. I just know that, he loved Soke, and anytime he wanted some hard hitters, if he wanted the real stuff to happen, it was Soke who he wanted it done with. He wanted his guns. If he wanted his guns out, he's going to call Soke. He's going to call his real guns that was going to be out there demonstrating and representing him. He wasn't going to call just anybody when he wanted something to be shown. So, that's how I represent it. So when it comes to, VSK, this is the man that told me to establish another name. And my desire to want to stay within our family, I established it. I established that. So I followed his instruction. And if someone else is saying something else different as far as doesn't have his blessings, that's on them. That's their problem with it. It's not really. They're not really representing Doc. They're representing their own spirit and their desire to want to eliminate a Soke Little John Davis so that they don't have to submit to his prowess, to submit to his genius, and submit to his being there as a senior to them, as well as myself.
So when you say that, now like with that comment you just made, is that to say that Soke Little John is he the top ranking senior in Sanuces Ru? Like, I'm a little on that last comment when you said submit to his. Like, what do you mean by that?
Absolutely. I would say that Soke is the top. There's no one else that can tell me that they are superior to Soke in their ability to demonstrate this art. And please get them on your show and have them say that aloud.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I just want to put that out there. Grandmaster Muhammad, man, it's a real brother right here. You know what I mean? He called the show. He talked. He didn't back down. He answered the question. So, Salahuddin, I don't think we should entertain any more foolishness. If someone's going to say something, call the show, put it out there in the public, because you got to respect him.
Absolutely.
You got to respect him.
Absolutely.
Grandma, you got to respect him for that, man. This is a real brother right here. It's a real brother. It's the real deal.
Yes,
Salahuddin, we can't entertain no more the BS. Call the show. If you got something to say, don't send no emails. Don't send no text messages.
That's right.
Call the show. Put your name out there and deal with it like that.
And we'll say it like this as well. You see, because I respect. I don't care what anyone calls themselves, master, grandmaster. I don't care what they call themselves. And in fact, I have said myself, a grandmaster is a professor in the art who have been given the authorization and courtesy to take on grandmaster by the one who is over the system. So it is a glorified professor, if you will, in that.
Yes,
and that's. But so I don't care what anyone says that they are. But it's always the mat is the answer to all that we say. And we respect you and respect anyone. But the greatest respect comes on the mat. So if anyone believes that they have something superior, you know, it is just a matter of us. Let us just be on the mat so that we can enjoy each other's spirit on the mat, and that is the truth.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
yes, sir.
Oh, man.
I'm glad that you are addressing these issues, and these issues have been going on for way too long. You know, I'm tired of hearing about the secret evidence. I'm tired of hearing about what this guy said and what this guy said. But listen, come on, you have the arena.
Grandmaster, you ever heard of a show called Unsolved Mysteries?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ain't no mysteries. Ain't no mystery God. Ain't no mystery here. Everything is out in the open.
It's not. And you see, the thing about it is that there's no need for any of this. See, only those who do this are the ones who want to keep things going. I'm not looking for trouble, and nor is anyone else. See, what we need to do is just be about unity more than anything else. And if we were about unity and respecting those who are your elders, respect them. Don't you take on, and let me give this one last story
yes,
for you. And this is a story.
Take as much time as you need. Trust me, we extended this show because we had Grandmaster Anthony Muhammad on. Enjoy yourself. Speak, brother.
Well, thank you. This story is actually when I brought Doc into New York. I paid for Doc to come to New York, and I put Doc up earlier in that time in an apartment and so forth. I did that until Doc chose to want to go and move on his own and whatnot. Of course, I mean, he's a grown man. But I set that up. But this is just during that time. I put on an event. It was called Tribute to the Masters. And at this event, we were blessed to have over 900 people. It was about 950 martial artists that came to this event, which was not a tournament. It was a demonstration. And it was a gathering of martial artists. But the beauty in this, and the story of it is this, that Shiman Antonio Pereira was someone who I knew his student, one of his students, a few of his students, but one in particular, Lenny Holmes.
Miyamaru, is this the Grandmaster Miyamaru?
Yes, Miyamaru, correct.
Yes,
and
okay.
I knew one of his students who was head he was the head of the department in corrections, where I was in corrections, and I was in the became a part of the academy, and he was over the martial arts or the physical training division, and I became a part of that team along with we got Zato Lemuel Isaac out of the Kuroshido system. He was there with me and whatnot. But the point that I'm bringing is that when I went to his dojo, I wanted to invite him personally. I knew that there were some issues with Grandmaster V. I really didn't know what it was all about because it was so old. I mean, it was longer than I, was in the art. I mean, there was just something that was going on. I knew that there was bad blood between them. Grandmaster V never mentioned anything to me about it, but I knew that it was. So when I went there, I had a student of mine, in fact, that was with me. And as I was asking and talking to him, someone went to get him, and I was just letting him know that I'm giving an event, and I would love for you to be there. I wanted to honor you for your time in the art and bring you together. And, you're a student of Moses Powell. I see, he mentioned Mr. V. So he started talking really, it was really negative. It was really very, very, very harsh, stuff, but it was not just negative, but it was like there was some history that was bad, and I didn't really understand what was going on, but I wanted to bring them together. I just wanted to bring Grandmaster V and this man who I know that had a problem. I don't know what it was about, but I wanted to bring them together at the same event. I know that it had not happened in years. So he started going into some things. I had to put my student out because my student was so upset with the man, with Shannon Pereira, that I had to put him out because, he didn't like the disrespect that was coming. But I said, these are men that that was before my time. I said, let me hear what this man has to say. And because I was able to take it, he realized that he could not run me away. He took me into a back room and then began to talk about the beautiful time that they had together. After I was able to not take on the spirit, like, what he's saying is so terrible that I'm out of here. I said, no, let me go through this because I want to know what this is all about. And I was able to find out that it was the whole thing was 30 years earlier. He had asked Grandmaster V, because they knew each other very well, and he had asked Grandmaster V to stay at his dojo while he was going to Japan to study. And Grandmaster V didn't want to do that. He was going to continue traveling and studying and whatnot, and he did not want to lock himself into that regiment of just doing that. And he was angered by that. Grandmaster V never told me or mentioned anything negative about him, but he had a problem with that. So after all that I went through, and then he began to talk about the good days, and he said to me at the end of it, he says, because of you, young man, I am going to end this 30-year feud because of you. And he came and brought over 50, I think it was more like 75 of his students to the event, and said at the event, he says, for the last 30 years we have had a feud, and from this day on, we are one family. And I was so blown away. But it was because I was ready to take whatever was necessary to bring unity amongst my family. I didn't have to do that. I could have took on a spirit that was, you're not going to talk about my teacher's teacher. But I chose to struggle and go through whatever was there for me, and because of that, I was blessed to be a part of introducing a time that removed the feud. And that was all. I mean, nothing else had to happen. That was it. And in fact, I'll tell you this. Wesley Snipes was someone who I had been working with. When I say working with, meaning he was on the set that I was handling for Spike, which was New Jack City. And he was active, and I invited him to the event because he would come to, anytime I told him I was fighting somewhere, he was there ringside. And he came to that event. And in fact, after when his event that came off, it was called the exact same thing that I had named our event. It was Tribute to the Masters, and it was such a beautiful thing that he did. And he is one that is a friend of mine, and we're friends of each other, if you will. And I was just thankful that he saw what I did as something that was worthy of him taking on and doing it in even a much bigger way with all of the masters that he did. So I just wanted to share that and show that, it's not about being disunited. It's about being united, and that's why I put together BSK, and that was for the unity of our arts as opposed to disuniting them.
Man, you there, Shabazz?
Man, I'm just listening to listening to history, man. I'm just soaking it all in, you know.
Absolutely. Grandmaster Anthony, we've already had you just about over an hour. We know you're a family man as well as a busy man. Any words of knowledge or anything you can say to the people out there within the sanuces family and the Jiu-Jitsu family and, of course, the Kumite family? Any words of knowledge you can pass out about to all those new students that are coming in who are not aware of all the confusion as far as training or just anything, any knowledge you want to leave or part us with today for the students out there, as well as those, we'll just call them detractors or people that have a difference of opinion with you as far as contacting you if they have some evidence or some proof or something, or even just disagree with you, how they can, just contact you and come to some type of dialogue where you don't have to agree with each other, but at least have the respect to at least talk to each other, at least create a dialogue between each other. And that's not only for the people that are walking in the door, but from the people from 554 Atlantic Avenue and beyond that. Any words or anything that you can leave out there for all the brothers and all the sisters and all the people that have been touched by Dr. Moses Powell?
Yes, well, I'll say this, and I really want to thank the both of you for, just blessing me with the opportunity to share, a little of my history and my mind with your listening audience. It is definitely a blessing for me to be able to do this, and I'm not one who, and I really apologize if I offended anyone on the line, with my spirit, but it is my spirit. And I desire to bring unity and to keep, Doc known. I want him to be known, and I'm not going to allow anyone to hinder in my ability to make him known. But this is what I would say to those students that are coming in. I'd say that when you begin to train, this art that we study, and I am a teacher of sanuces. Don't let anyone tell you that I don't teach sanuces. All you need to do is look at what I teach and look at my father, and you will see that there is a resemblance between me and my dad. So when you are coming into this art, know that what he who I'm mentioning, of course, my father, Dr. Moses Powell, my teacher, that he is someone who was desirous of changing your view of what your surroundings was. When we say watch your back, we say eye to eye. The whole idea is that this is an art that is for real and it is true, and that you want to make sure that whomever is teaching you and is taking your body from one level of condition to another, because 3/4 of the training was to develop your body into a greater structure, a greater make your body a greater place than it was when you first started. And then it was added the technical ability to be able to deal with someone. The whole idea was that if you went out safe, if you left your home and you were safe at home, there's no reason for you not to be safe in the street. And that if you were in the street, you're always supposed to be eye to eye with whatever anyone has in store for you. You were always supposed to be watching your back so that there is never a surprise. If you were surprised, then you were not watching your back. The surprise should be the person who is trying to surprise you, that they are surprised. So know that if you are not being conditioned, then you're not studying sanuces. If you're not receiving what is necessary on that level, you're not receiving sanuces. But know that unity. Doc was one of the most beautiful brothers also that you could ever have. He was also one of the worst enemies that you could have too, but he was a wonderful, wonderful man. And, so I would just say, I thank the both of them. And when you study this art, know that you're studying it for your own reasons. And you have to make sure that your reason for studying this is greater than someone's desire to hurt you. Because if their want to hurt you is greater than your need to survive, you're going to fail. So you have to put your time into what you are studying now before you are tried, so that when you are tried, you will succeed and pass the trial and be successful to live and teach someone else what you did to survive. So, I'll just leave that. And the last thing I'll say that we're having a seminar in Sarasota, Florida. We're going to have a wonderful time in September, the weekend of September 16th. You can go to VSKFederation.com and get your information as to what is going on. Listen, we're going to have a ball-led. This is Soke's event that's happening. Masters are going to be coming in from around the country as well. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone there. If anyone says don't show, that's the reason that you should. All right. So again, thank you, my brothers, for your inviting me, and I really enjoyed myself on this in this conversation. Yes,
Grandmaster, before we leave, just one more second, if you don't mind. I do be a few seconds here. We have a segment on our radio shows called Eye to Eye, and what it is when two brothers have, or sisters, or anybody has a different point of view, and they have a civil dialogue. Would you be willing to come back if one of the seniors, or whether someone else, and have a dialogue, an eye-to-eye with somebody via the radio, in maybe a 1 hour, not debate, but just discussion, where you can present who wants to challenge you on anything you said today. He would be able to challenge you, and then you would be able to respond. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want people to call in and just attack and not have you or anyone else who's on the radio station be able to respond immediately. And so I want to issue that challenge out, and if you would be willing to accept it, if anyone has a problem with what Grandmaster Anthony has said today, or has something that they think needs to be told, would you be willing to come back and maybe do an eye-to-eye segment with anyone who maybe offers to debate you on some of the because I can be honest with you, Grandmaster, some of the things you said are really controversial, and I can assure you that the talk tomorrow would be that's just not true. Or it is true. Depending on which side.
This is what I will accept. What I would accept before we get on the line with the public to become an audience or an object of an audience who may not even know anything about it. But what I would say is this, and you can arbitrate that we will have a private conversation.
Yes,
a private conversation with those persons to deal with this as opposed to on the radio or I should say, the internet radio or whatever. First, I would say we have a private conversation so that, those persons, if they feel like they want to have dialogue, that, you don't want to put them in front of an audience to attempt to act up. See, act up in the presence of the individual alone, and see if it continues. So I would say that I would be willing to get on a conference call, if you will, with someone who has some issue with anything that I have said, that we will address it as men first, and then we can deal with it civilly if we want to get on in the eyesight or earshot of someone as far as letting it be something just for people to gawk at. I don't really want that. I want to deal with what an issue is that somebody has, but I don't have any problem in you being an arbitrator in that, and we can move from that point.
I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. All right, Grandmaster, tell the people how they can find you, the dojo, and your email, and any other contact information you want.
Yes, my email address is USOSVSK at gmail.com. That's my email address, USOSVSK@gmail.com. And you can, my number, anyone, you can get my number by calling me at 773-457-8899. And in addition to that, my dojo in Chicago here is at 811 East 82nd Street. That's Chicago, Illinois, 60619. And we have chapters. Sanuces is all over the place. So we got New York. We got a lot of areas covered. Definitely, you got Grandmaster Bill McLeod with the Eastern Division of Sanuces that is over on Washington Avenue in Brooklyn, and you can get him at martialartsusa.com. So anyway, I just look forward to anyone who has a need for any information. Please contact me. Don't communicate, this stuff outside of talking to the person first. Talk to me about it, and let us have a real man-to-man discussion, and we can go from that point. Outside of that, it is just looking to we're just being haters from one brother to another, and it's unnecessary because you can't gain anything by it. You can only try to destroy by it.
Words from the Grandmaster. Grandmaster Anthony, thank you very, very much. It was a pleasure interviewing, and thank you for answering the tough questions and accepting our invitation, and even allowing us to go outside of some of the questions that we had, of course, agreed upon. And I really, really want to say thank you. Shabazz, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to just wrap it up like this. Grandmaster Anthony Muhammad, man, you're a real brother, man. You're a real brother. It's obvious. You love Doc. It's obvious. Listen, man, you got my vote, and you're just a real brother. Me on the other hand, though, I am a diehard Sanuces rule, period. But I do respect VSK. I definitely see it as I see it as our family. But me on the other hand, I'm straight Sanuces, and I definitely see you as the Grandmaster of Sanuces. And the way I want to end it, though, I remember when I graduated from high school in '97. I always used to hear about when worlds collide. And, worlds collide rang bells all over New York City. Everybody, if you was in the arts, you knew about when worlds collide. But I never knew where that dojo was at. I never knew where worlds collide was at, but I always heard about it. It was like, because I always wanted to stop by. And, you know what I mean? So I never forget, I finished, it was the last day of high school. I graduated. Me and my friends, we went downtown Brooklyn, and we was just chilling. And, we had on the graduation shirt. 1997, we just graduated from high school. So some cats was downtown Brooklyn, and I guess they seen, they just, hating, finished, you got the little cap and gown, so they like style it, So make a long story short, it turned into a big fight. It was like about 5, 6 of my friends, maybe 10 of those. We don't even know who these guys were, and we wound up fighting in the middle of Flatbush Avenue, Livingston. Cops came, and then they broke it up. It was a real nasty fight in the middle of Flatbush Avenue, and so I'm sitting there. And, the cops asked me a million questions about what's going on. And as I looked up, I looked across the street, and I saw when worlds collide. So,
yes, sir.
So it's pretty interesting that 18 or 17 years later, I get to talk to you. But I just wanted to get that out. And I just also want to say, man, I love you, man, from a brother to a brother. And I hope, inshallah, that one day we can meet and my sensei can meet and we can work it out on the mat.
No question,
yes,
no question. I appreciate it. Thank you. And that was 52 Flatbush Avenue.
Thank you, Grandmaster. Once again, thank you very much. Episode brought to you by www.sinjokai.com, your premier Sanuces Ryu Jiu-Jitsu located here in Atlanta, Georgia. As always, eye to eye,
heart to heart.
Heart to heart.
Oh, thank you, Grandmaster. Take care, sir.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
All right. This episode was brought to you by www.sinjokai.com. Grandmaster Anthony brought some devastating knowledge, and it was a pleasure interviewing the brother. Please feel free to contact me at sinjomartialarts@gmail.com. That's Sinjo, SENJO, martial art, without an S, @gmail.com. And you can visit me at www.sinjokai, SENJOKAI.com, or Sinjo Martial Arts, this time with an S, .com, www.sinjomartialarts.com. Your premier Sanuces Ryu Jiu-Jitsu dojo located here in Atlanta, Georgia. Once again, thank you for listening. Eye to eye, heart to heart, each one, teach one, to the wall and back. Woos.